You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
I want to talk about news, don't want the drama. From no pretentious media Madonna. I found me a great ganja mama. Cannabis and coffee with Tamarijuana.
Oh, good grief. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. I want to shout out to Jim Melville and for again thanking him for doing my introductory song. It's been about, I think I've had it now for about 4 years, but we used it on the old network. Now we're using it on this network, and that's just a huge shout out and a thank you to you. This morning I have an activist that's been around for, I think he said 43 years. That's a long time to be involved in legalization and trying to make, the cannabis plant be something that's first and foremost for medical patients or for people in general. We all know somebody that uses cannabis for medical purposes. Now, whether you want to call them patients or whether you want to call them people that use cannabis for medicine, that's up to you. I've never been one that wanted the dog tag, to have that tag, that license, even though I did go out and get it at some point because I wanted to protect my son and be able to have the ability to grow my own cannabis. Now, over the years, that was in 2012, we, lost the ability to grow our own cannabis, had to go back to court. And that's where Carl kind of comes in too, because he was involved in the Canadian Cannabis Coalition with Jason Wilcox, which many of us were. I was the Alberta rep for quite a long time. And through the collective activism that was done across the country, we were able to come up with enough funding to be able to take this issue to a BC Supreme Court, where now it's in an injunction. So the MMAR still stands for some people, so they can grow their own cannabis, and then they had to change the whole program again from MMPR to ACMPR, which then gave patients the ability to grow their own cannabis again. The unfortunate thing is that the MMAR allowed people to grow a little more freely, where the ACMPR started putting restrictions. And because the kiosk was done for soldiers, because the Canadian government Ministry of Defense was paying a certain amount for PTSD for soldiers. So then they did this comprehensive study to see how much it cost. And basically it boiled down to they weren't going to pay any more than 3 to 5 grams. That was the recommended dosage. So overall, that kind of became the overall dosage for, kind of precedent setting for people, maximum 5 grams a day. Well, some of us are already at 15 and 20 grams a day. So for us to be able to be knocked back down to 5 grams a day, never mind the plant count. How can you tell somebody that they, their ability? Anyway, because of dollars and cents is pretty much my take on how that kind of all rang down. So the ACMPR still exists, but it's really hard to find a doctor that's actually going to give you a prescription that's over the 5 gram limit. There are some, but again, you're still paying money. The only way you're going to get a free licensing is if you go through some of these places that then take you to a licensed producer. My doctor said, why do you need a license when you can go to the store and get 30 grams a day when you're only prescribed 15? The ability to grow your own medicine still hasn't come to that mindset where it's actually our ability to be in control of everything from seed to end for my body. And I think a lot of people don't understand that whole production. Say growing a carrot, right? You grow that carrot for your own consumption. You want it to be the best product you can have. Same with cannabis. You want to have the best product at the end of the day that you can have. Anyways, now that I'm done rambling for a minute, we're going to bring in my guest and ask him who he is and how he got into cannabis. Come on in, Carl. How you doing?
Everything was good until I realized I was my camera's needing some power. I'm fine, thank you. And your introduction was awesome. I actually learned a lot.
Well, that's why we keep doing these podcasts and these to keep education flowing, because now that cannabis is legal and our community is kind of fractured. In fact, our community is really fractured, to be honest. We don't have the same networks that we used to have. I don't think that we're as connected as we used to be because of legalization. I think that our medical community has been fractured to the point where a lot of our designated growers, a lot of our people that were involved have now gone to the legal market, and that community fracture is there. And we're talking about division, and that division was always there, like right from the get-go. Like we all know that, you know, there was lots of egos in the background, always fighting amongst ourselves to try and get the right messaging out so that we could get to where we are, whether it was for patients' rights or whether it was for cannabis rights in general, right? So
Right.
Let's introduce you. So tell people who you are and how you got involved in cannabis.
Okay. First memory I have of it was back in late 60s when the family across the street, the American family across the street, were moved to Canada so that their son could avoid going to Vietnam. And he was a tall, lanky, older 18-year-old. I was just 6 or something. And they finally caught up to him and informed the family that he had to get dragged out to Vietnam. So he was having a goodbye party with his Canadian buddies that he grew up with. And I remember them calling me across the street. They were playing basketball on the driveway, and I went into the garage, just like 6.5 years old, and they're all sitting around smoking dope. That was like, that's an interesting smell. And so I said my goodbyes and everything, but that was kind of my first recollection of whatnot. When it came to my use of cannabis, or my introduction to cannabis for usage, 1978, that's, I don't know how many years ago, I had been flatlined by a drunk driver, and I was riding my 10-speed and left on the side of the road to bleed out, which I did. And well, by the time they got me to the emergency or whatever, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was like one of those clear, sort of thing. And a recollection I still have to this day, actually, that entire experience. But aside from that, this happened around the GTA north of Toronto, and I ended up in Sunnybrook, and I had the fortune of, and who ended up becoming a world-renowned bone orthopedic surgeon, Dr. English. He worked on reconstructing my leg. My buddy was also hit, reconstructed his leg too, 1978. But the problem was I landed on my head, so I had no helmet, and so I was bleeding out at both ends, and that's why I bled out. And so basically what happened at Sunnybrook in 1978 was 2 insurance companies, the owner of the car, the person who was driving the car, they ended up giving themselves up afterward. And Sunnybrook got involved in this insurance situation where I don't need to, to be told that I was imagining things, but it's when back in 1978, what head injury. So basically, the insurance companies told Sunnybrook, give this kid a golden star. So they gave me a square peg and a round peg, a square hole and a round hole. The head psychiatrist back at the time. They go to town, Sonny, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, okay, did I do it right? Oh, there you go. Okay, there you go. You've got a clear bill of health. I had amnesia for I don't know how long after the accident, and for 2 years I was in a cloud. I didn't know. I thought I was dead, and it was like in a movie. It was kind of bizarre. So about 1.5 years later, 2 years later, I'm riding my bike, a bike, not my bike. My bike was crumpled through a cloud of smoke. These kids were at the walkway on the way out back home from school, and I drove my bike through there, and it was, I slammed my brakes on, I stopped and went, what was that? Yeah, I go back and I explain to him it's black hash, and I'm like, good Lord. I mean, it smelled like musk or something. It was like this the most beautiful smell I had ever smelled. And I'm like, So I ended up grabbing a gram off Buddy. And I remember I was doing my homework and I'm like, I rolled in a ball and I'm noodling around with it. I don't know what to do with this thing. So finally, eventually, um, I asked, somebody said you mix it with a little bit of tobacco and, whatever. So I'm like, okay. Now, just to let you know, and I've done this with seniors more recently, and the same thing happened, but it happened to me back then. I didn't know what I know now. And I just remember, now, I've been now almost 2 years since my accident and all that I'd gone through there. And literally, my world was all over the place, literally all over the place. And as soon as that inhale touched my cannabinoids, I swear to God, everything on this planet in my world just kind of went leveled out. And I was like looking around, blinking my eyes like a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, going, like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And ever since then, I mean, that was long-haired, drug-crazed, hippie freak, rock and roll musician guy with the grub boots and the leather jacket and the jeans and typical punk, teenage punk, high school punk. But this was different. This was something else. This was no. Like, and I had slowly adapted to this, and it helped me immediately. I never looked back. But the only problem was, of course, early 80s and whatnot, the stigma of marijuana. And I'm saying that word, and we can talk about that later. Anyway, of cannabis. And that was how many years ago? And ever since then, living through all the phases of this life that seems like two different lives. I was, labeled, ridiculed, gone through what probably most other patients who used cannabis all these years as medicine had to scratch their heads and go, but why? But why? This isn't working for me, and yet, So here's the scoop. Fast forward. I bumped into a guy by the name of many years ago, Spike. And I can't believe I'm bringing this up. And Spike was a sound engineer in the GTA for years. We weren't even friends. We were kind of like, we were kind of counterparts, but I really respected the guy. He was a really smart guy. He ended up getting leukemia. Everybody vied for him. The village got together. We raised money for the guy. He ended up becoming anyway, it's a long story, but the bottom line is he lived to talk about it. He moved out to Vancouver. He was out in Vancouver, and I found out that he's doing very well. He got his MMAR, I guess, at the time, and his cultivation license, and cannabis was really helping him out. But I didn't know much about this guy at that time. We spent 31 years in the music business together. And then somebody stole his husband and a wife, who they may even be listening. Whoever knows Spike, and I know a lot of people out there knew Spike. There's a husband and a wife who literally spoofed him, bamboozled him, and took his crop and everything like that. So that really sent, and the cascading effect of all that leads me to you and I speaking today. And it's weird because, at the end of the day, all those people who in someone's life who, when you're seeming valuable to people, they're around. But as soon as you hit, this fair weather friend sort of thing, as soon as you hit something, he got sick the second time, and he didn't get sick. He injured himself the second time. He fell, broke his tailbone, and in the process of him breaking his tailbone, I could tell you, if anybody's wants to get into medicine, learn everything and anything and be a specialist about the tailbone, the coccyx. Nobody knows anything about the coccyx, okay? And I discovered this. I know more about the coccyx than I ever wanted to know. But the bottom line is, here we bring back Sunnybrook again, okay? And Sunnybrook, head psychiatrist, I don't know if we can use names, but I'd love to. But, okay, and the head psychiatrist at North York General, they And all slew of doctors all circled their wagons and basically executed him. And I did everything I could to save that man's life. And I learned an awful lot about politics and law and illegal politics. I don't know what else to call it. And the racketeering, and in the medical business, and in the hospitals, and oh my God. So
Well,
this was just.
I think that's the worst thing. Like, and again, you know, we try and stick to cannabis as the basics on this show, but I kind of wander into politics a lot. And you're in Ontario, and as far as I can see from where I'm sitting in British Columbia, who had a fairly strong conservative government prior to the NDP that we've got now that destroyed BC's healthcare. You got Alberta destroying healthcare. You've got, you know, Manitoba. Thankfully, Webb Canoe's in there right now because he might be able to bring some sensibility back to Manitoba. Ontario, you have Doug Ford. Anywhere where you've got a conservative premier sitting, what they're doing is dismantling public health to make it so that it's like you have to pay. It's privatization on a fucking huge level. And it doesn't matter whether you're a medical patient for cannabis, whether you're a cancer patient, whether you're, you know, you need a hernia surgery. We all have these huge weights, right? And it doesn't matter, but everyone wants to play the blame game. And you have to look inside your own province to see where the problem has been. And in Ontario too, like if you had you had the Liberal government prior to that win there, they weren't doing a terrific job either. So when it comes down to it, you go back 20 years, okay? You go back 20 years at any province and see, because that's where everything began. Now this domino effect, like you call it, has been going on for 20 years, and we got this sloppy mess at the bottom.
The scene, yes. Again, you're bang on. This is incredible. You're so. I hadn't really taken note of you over the years as regularly as I should have, and just want to throw that in. But you're absolutely right, and the modulation, I guess. Since I was a kid, I noticed patterns and stuff in nature and then human behavior, and psychology became a big fascinating thing when I discovered that there's like psychology of the individual and then there's psychology of the masses, which is two or more people, and the behavior, how that the differentiation in the behavior of the individual versus two or more. And that fascinated me as a kid. My sisters, I have 4 older sisters. They all went to the 2 older ones that when they were going to university. I was sitting there falling asleep with this 6-inch thick textbook of psychology, reading it till 4 in the morning. It just fascinated me. But it was because I saw stuff. I'm an observer and a messenger, I was told. That's a dangerous combination.
I think we all see things and perceive things differently, right? And
absolutely. But a lot of people. So here's the thing: where does cannabis, where does Spike, all this stuff come in? So the interesting thing where Spike comes in is because when I was helping him, as I was helping him in his demise in the last year of his life, I gave up my bed because he was injured, and I slept on a rickety couch for 6 months. And during that time, I was in a basement. I had lost my house, my home, my Garden of Eden in the backyard, and I had nowhere to grow my plants. And I had to resort to God's country up near Barrie. And during that time, Spike was in my basement apartment and convalescing, and I'm trying like hell to fight to find him the help he needed. And one night on a long weekend, I had to go get my harvest up in God's country. He was the only one who knew where I was going. And I left to go where I had to do on a beautiful long weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, 2012. And I didn't come home until 6:30 in the morning. And he's like, "Where were you?" And I said, "Oh, have I got a story to tell you?" And in the last 6 hours or 12 hours it was that I was gone, I went to get my harvest. I went to collect my harvest and do what I had to do to survive. So I was essentially 100% following my charter rights and freedoms, doing what I had to do to get my food and medicine, which happened to be cannabis. And in the process of heading home that evening, an unmarked OPP car pulled me over, and I'm going to be writing a book or script for a movie, because how this all unfolded to this day, and I would probably even include this interview because this is the first time I ever told this story, like publicly.
Right.
Anyway, so I could go on for hours, but I'm going to sum it up. What Dad did that night, the OPP officer, roadside, we had an interesting exchange, and I felt what I refer to as a paradigm. So I felt the earth move, and I thought it was an earthquake. And I went, whoa, because the essence of what was happening that evening was, I kept asking, how do I, like in the scene in the movie of Metropolis where the guy takes the steel pipe and sticks it in the gears and stops the machine. Leading up to this day, I kept asking, how do I get to rock bottom with a big metal pipe and stick it in the gears and stop the machine? The cannabis prohibition machine. How would I ever do that? Well. I asked myself, and I gave myself an answer. Do what I just did. Okay? And here I am facing my life. It's going to go that way. I'm facing jail time. It's going to go this way. I'm going to live my life as best I can with what I got left in my pocket. Nothing. Okay, so I explained to the police officer everything. And as we were walking around, the entire thing, at the end of the day, what he did was measured out 4 pounds. And when the officer goes on the sheet to mark at the top, he goes, oh, there's a summary conviction and there's a trafficking conviction. Now, 2012, 4 pounds was not a summary conviction. It had nobody would even think about that. 4 pounds is trafficking, period. However, when I mentioned about the paradigm situation, the police officer actually did due diligence, and he actually absorbed everything that I told him, and he marked it down as a summary conviction. Now, I had no idea. So in the leading up time to go to my first appearance in Nottawasaga, no, sorry, that's where the OPP office was holding cell. I had to go to Bradford up north of Newmarket. And okay, so I had to do some research. And in the process, I'm panicking. I call up my half-hour free consultation with a lawyer. And I didn't, okay, you know what? My question was, do I need a lawyer for my first appearance? And the lawyer I was speaking to said, well, for $7,500, I'll put a package together. And I'm like, okay. So at the end of the call, he says, well, for $3,500, I'll put a package together. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, could you answer my question? My first question, do I need a lawyer for my first appearance? Yes or no? No. Goodbye. Okay. And then I made a decision. I had a little walk out in the park at 4 o'clock in the morning. There's a reference to that. And it dawned on me, my father was a criminal lawyer, and I was supposed to be a lawyer. And I don't like lawyers. I don't trust lawyers. I don't like doctors. But we need them every once in a while. But more often than not with lawyers, actually, you don't, especially with cannabis. So I discovered. And my first call was to a distant relative of mine, this guy, John Conroy. My dad used to tell me, oh, there's a QC. My dad was a Queen's Counsel too here in Toronto, criminal lawyer. But he used to tell me there was another lawyer out west. He had his Queen's Counsel delegation. I was like, oh, really? This guy, John Conroy. I got old black and white photos of my sister's place. It's Conroy family. So, like, he's a relative. I called him up. We spoke for 3.5 hours. He forgot he was talking to a civilian and shared a lot of interesting information on the lawyer side of this conversation. Thank you, John. Very valuable information. I phoned a lawyer out in Nova Scotia. His wife had just passed away earlier that day, and he apologized, got in touch with me the next day and apologized for taking so long because his wife had passed away, but it was so important that he got in touch with me to answer the question that I threw at him. And it was about me defending myself. And he set me straight. I don't know who this guy was. I can check my records. And then I spoke to also with a Paul, I don't want to finish his last name, but another lawyer. And it went south. Like, I was like doing this with the phone going, who's this guy? Like, so to me, dealing with lawyers, I don't like lawyers. I wouldn't become a lawyer because it's not in my DNA. It is in my DNA. I had to fight that. So I eat lawyers for lunch. I've been doing that for seniors here in Toronto against the Toronto Housing Corporation. And I did it for Spike, for the doctors in the hospitals. And then all of a sudden I'm fighting my own battle here. Oh my God. So 13 appearances. Throughout that time, on my third appearance, one lawyer comes to me in Bradford and says, oh, Carl, do you know a guy named Mark Emery or Matt Murnau? And I said, back in 2013, early 13, and I heard those names on the news or something, right? He goes, well, I just want to tell you that your case is up there with those two guys. I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he goes, but the only difference with your case is you never went to the media. I'm thinking, oh, really? Huh? And I'm thinking, about what? Oh, and by the way, the only people who knew about me being arrested were my mom, one of my sisters, at the time my girlfriend, and two of my closest best friends. That was it.
Well, yeah, because
Nobody else.
Something back then before legalization, if you weren't part of the community, you wouldn't have known that it was okay to come out and say, hey, and go to the papers and say, hey, this is wrong. Like, this is a human right. Like, this is something I was working on for somebody for medical. Like, and I think that the lack of education for a lot of people that were already working like yourself, not knowing that from 2000 on, what you were doing was actually legal, right? If you had the proper paperwork to do it under, right? But I mean, it was well known. It wasn't like advertising. You could go out and get cannabis licensing for medical, right? Like, and that had been going on since 2000. And you were obviously unaware of that.
Oh, correct. And as a matter of fact, the whole aspect of what was happening here. Now, this was key, and this is why I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, and I'd walk into a situation not know what's going on around me, like whatever. That's my life story. So here's the scoop. Buddy marks 4 pounds as a summary conviction. I didn't have a license. I didn't have a license at the time. I had a GP for 31 years since my accident. And he'd known all those years that I had been using cannabis. And they kept pulling out the little prescription pad and going, and about to write some synthetic, some bad, toxic, synthetic, mind-altering drug. And he'd go, oh, it's you. And he'd put it back in the drawer and close it and say, I forgot. So that was me for 31 years at the time of this arrest. And so when I went back and I explained to Spike what happened, he said, oh my God, I'm going to write a letter. We're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. Those were my plants. I can't go anywhere. I'm invalid. So you went, I convinced you to go. He wrote me I still have the letter. And all that was said and done. I said, you know what, Spike? No, this is my baby. I'm gonna own it. This is my thing. And in the meantime, I'm not realizing that all those years that I was asking, how do I jam that pipe into the years, I was doing it. I didn't realize. I had no idea I was actually getting a firm grip on the pipe at the time.
Right.
And so the lawyer, screw you. So my doctor, I had to go to my doctor. And Spike said, here's what you're going to do. He goes on the computer. He calls up Health Canada. We print out an application from my MMAR and a possession standard 5 grams. He explained everything to me. I'm like, why, how, what? And my story. So I go down to my doctor's. I phone my doctor. He goes, oh, I just want me to sign a piece of paper. I didn't tell him anything. No, I just need you to sign something. Okay, yeah, come at the end of the tomorrow, last patient, I'll sign it and I can be on your way, which is basically what I did.
I'm going to stop you right there because we got to take a quick commercial break and thank our sponsors so we can keep going on. We'll come back and you can finish where you left off about telling
I'll keep it in mind.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to talk break for our and thank our sponsors. 3 minutes or so, folks. Be right back.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network. By patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
All right, we're back after our break. Thanks again to our sponsors, Legacy 420, Campbellford Lifestyle, and the hydro stores and everything. Anyways, Carl, we were talking about how you were getting to the doctor and signing you up for your MMAR.
Yep. So, real quick, he knew all these years that I've been using cannabis. So when I showed up that day and he left the office and I throw the brown envelope and I had the whole spiel ready. The whole story, blah, 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 this happened. So I blew the brown envelope on his side. He comes in, he sees a brown envelope, he sits down. No, what's this? He didn't say anything. He just kind of opens it up, and I see his eyebrows go up. He flips a page. He's doing his thing, and I'm thinking, this isn't new to him. So then he goes, yeah. And then about the right, he turns the next page and he looks at me and he goes, so to date, what have we done so far? And I was told he's going to ask that question. I went, oh, hang on a sec. So I pull out another piece of paper and I hand it to him with a list chronologically of, all what's happened. And he went, okay. And he leans over, he gets his little pad of, stamp pad, little stickers, boom, 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 boom. And he looks at me and he says, isn't there supposed to be a little photograph of you or something that I signed a back of? And I knew right then, oh, you've definitely done this before. And I said, oh, my printer wasn't working, actually. I didn't think I'd even get that far. I'd have time. I was in a rush. I had to go, so I left without. He goes, I'll just bring it by tomorrow night. Yeah, at the end of the day or whenever, I'll just sign it. Okay, so I got that. Fast forward. I go to my first appearance up at Bradford. And speaking with the lady, she was there, not adjudicator, it's the duty counsel. So the duty-free legal spiel, she's reading my thing. She goes, oh, you're looking at jail time. You're looking at a lot of jail time. You're looking at some pretty steep fines and basically something I'll never be able to come out of in this life, right? And I'm going, yeah, oh, so all this is going on. I said, well, I didn't do anything wrong, actually. and so at the end of it, she goes, okay, well, your name will be called. And I said, oh, I forgot one thing. And I hand her this envelope and she opens it up and she looks, oh, you got this signed by your doctor. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, I don't know if that's going to help any. And then she looks and she's looking at the two things. She goes, nice try, Mr. Braund. She goes, your doctor's sign is 3 days after your arrest. What is this, a go home for free ticket? And I looked at her, I said, what? What are you talking about? And she goes, yeah, well, you got your doctor to sign this to, and I said, no, my doctor doesn't know anything about an arrest. I never mentioned anything about an arrest. I didn't mention anything about it. He doesn't know anything about anything. I wanted him to make his decision based on being my GP for 31 years, and he did so. And he was expecting me to do this any time. I was actually supposed to do it 2 weeks ago, but luck wasn't on my side. And she goes, oh, well, I'll just give this to the thing. Okay. So when it comes to the judge coming out and listing all these things that I'm looking at, he goes, how do you plead? And as I'm building my breath to say not guilty, one of the Crown reps jumped up and holds up my license. And she goes, oh, Mr. Braund won't be pleading whatever today because he's awaiting his MMAR license. And so we'll expect to see him back in, 2 months. And so that, and I, exactly. Or that, exactly. So fast forward, 13 appearances. During this time, a lawyer came up and said, the lawyer came up and asked about the Matt Murnaugh thing. He said, do you know why did you know your file was on Harper's desk? I said, what? He goes, yep. He said, they didn't know what to do with you. He didn't, because Harper was in the process of lying to Canadians about the gardens, about, like homegrown home ops or grow ops or whatever. Nobody realizes that it wasn't just cannabis gardens, all gardens, just for the record. So under the guise of the cannabis facade, okay? Now, I was getting bamboozled by somebody who I had been introduced to at this time to help me fast forward my licensing, to help me with my licensing, get her moving. I needed an address because I wanted a cultivation license. So I was introduced to this guy named Todd, and that's all I'm going to say. His name's Todd, and he was Harper's federal cannabis advisor, and we had this conversation, and as he's showing me all these different extracts and blah, 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 and this does this and that does that, and about the nerve sheath around the nerves and what is all, oh, this is beautiful. I know it's a good plant. It's a win-win situation there, Todd. But when you're talking about this, at what price point do you plan on coming in here, right? Now that you're talking about legalization, he goes, oh, we'll take 5 or 7% off the going rate. And I'm like, do you realize who you're talking about? Most of these people are marginalized. They're on disability. They're on death door. They're using this plant to survive, including myself. And you take 5 to 7% off the going rate, which is the government's 1,000% inflated historical illicit market street price. Is that what you're taking the 5 or 7% off of? Oh, I never really thought of it that way. But this is Harper's federal cannabis advisor in this conversation. I said, Mister, down the road, you're not going to get away with this. Okay, you're going to see somebody going like this, waving their arms, jumping up and down. You're not passing me on this one, okay? You're not going to go past on this one. Now, that was end of 2012. That was 12 years ago. Is it already 12 years ago?
Yeah, because we've had legalization since 2019.
Yeah, so, okay.
5 years of legalization, we've been taxing.
So he was stalling me. This guy was lying to me. Oh, I'm going to get your license. I've got an address for you. And he was setting me up. Meanwhile, he's working. Okay. So Harper didn't know. He's working for Harper, and he's stalling me. So Harper didn't know what to do with my file. Oh, my God. What do we do? This guy had 4 pounds marked as a summary conviction. This is wrong. This is going against everything we're planning on spoofing Canadians on. What is this? It must stop. So he ordered my freaking stupid little file to be faxed across Canada. Okay, settle this one. To all the chiefs of police across Canada. My file got faxed. Urgent. What do we do with this guy? What do we do with this guy? Now, I also knew that by representing myself, one of the worst things that lawyers like to deal with is dealing with the other side. It doesn't have a lawyer. So just that on its own was very attractive for me. But little did I realize, the scene in The Wizard of Oz, when Toto sniffs something and he jumps up on the stage and he runs over and grabs a curtain, he pulls it open, and there's a guy sitting there doing the machines. You know that scene?
Absolutely.
I was Toto. I simply assumed the role of Toto. And there I realized that big Wizard of Oz, that big cannabis prohibition facade was just a bunch of bullshit, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there going, oh my God. So while I was going to court, I realized that everything I'm reading on the legal side, the legal federal, provincial, municipal, Canadian society, Upper Canada, stick it up your river without a paddle society, law society, everything about everything that we're talking about today is based on a known, simple, single, known wrongful scheduling of cannabis as a narcotic. And that, let's just look at that as ground zero, okay? But in the books, in Canadian law books, everything I was reading, I'm trying to research to defend myself, and I'm reading the word marijuana in legal text. Now, no offense to anybody, but the word doesn't belong in official legal text. And I I put together a beautiful little letter to the Upper Canada Law Society explaining that I'm defending myself, utilizing your material to research my defense, yet it's ripe with inappropriate, incorrect, inapplicable laws, and not only today, but for the past 100 years.
Right.
And did you know that within 8 months after that, the word marijuana literally vaporized from Canadian law?
Yeah.
I still have that letter. And I wrote that letter to inform the other side, my opponents, apparently, the Crown, that the ground they were standing on, don't waste my time. I'm defending myself against an illegal law. Okay, I didn't know this. Fast forward, that was 2013, 2017. Here I am, showing up at every damn patient-run dispensary or non-LP dispensary that I could, because they were, threatening all the. Oh no, you can't come back to work. You can't ever sign here. Okay, so let me fast forward. I'm standing there in a dispensary up in Vaughan, Ontario, patient-run dispensary, knowing that at any moment that door is going to, open, and it's going to be time to bedtime for Bonzo. And sure enough, that moment came. I see the paper against the glass thing, and I look and I see, Yorkie Porky, and I'm like, and he's saying something about open the door. Oh, hang on. I do not give them anything to get you on. And I'm standing there, and they go through what we had to do. I'm now in cuffs, and the arresting officer made a little bit of a boo-boo. He took my coffee mug and literally did this while I was in cuffs, and that in itself was an assault that they were afraid that I was going to bring up, right? But I was in my back pocket, and I'm trying to explain to the leading officer everything he was doing was actually he's arresting himself in a way, because he's violating his own rights and freedoms, because blah blah blah. But it turns out that after 13 appearances in 2012. And let me backtrack here. Sorry about that. Back in the 2012, 2013. So finally I get one of the last cultivation licenses under the MMAR in my pocket. I go back to court and I say, here, look at this, blah, blah, blah. And I actually made a mistake, and I signed, I gave the Crown something. I signed, 1 year, it wasn't a complete withdrawal. A stay. I accepted a stay. Okay. No. I'm standing there going, wait a second. And the term complete withdrawal slipped from my mind, and I should have written it down. What is it what you want, Mr. Braun? I want a complete withdrawal. That would have happened, but I made the mistake. The damn lawyer who was working for Harper sitting there, he saw me blink, and he jumps up and he spins around and he says to the lawyer, or to the judge, Crown requests a stay in the matter, Your Honor. And I stupidly accepted the stay. That was 2013. Now, that afternoon, CP24 puts an announcement on their little text thing saying something about 31st of March, about our gardens had to be cat littered by midnight 31st of March. And I'm reading, this is September, 6 months prior, and I'm reading this that night. They were waiting for the outcome of my case before they made this announcement to reiterate what the announcement was going to be. Literally, okay, I don't know who any of this had to do with anything to do with me, but it, in hindsight, ended up. And they make this announcement. So for the next 6 months, I went into a darker, deeper hole of depression and anxiety than I had experienced after my divorce and losing everything I had, because all I had left was cannabis. And all of a sudden somebody says, oh, and by the way, we're taking that too. That was it. That was like, oh my God. So it was from that point on, bless you, but all these months leading up to that point, I was getting more and more desperate, like probably everybody else was. And then I trip upon this in desperation. I click on this video. Jen, You know Jen from out west here? Of all people, coalition, what is this cannabis rights coalition? Jen, she's talking to Harper, crying, saying what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to them, to the coalition. And I showed up at a show down there, and it was Julia. She was doing she did speeches for Peter McWilliams, was it?
Yep.
Peter and
Yep.
Julia. Talk about angels on earth. She's one of them. Oh my God. And she did an interview with me because I was in the next booth. And she goes, "Oh, hey, mister, can I do an interview?" I don't know anything. I just showed up just to show up for the coalition, right? I'm like, I don't know anything about anything. I'm not an activist or an advocate or whatever. I'm just doing my thing. So it turned out that, I drew all sorts of political, cartoony sort of things about that. But I ended up meeting Justin Loizos and a bunch of people that from that point on. And Justin and I have been like this ever since. And
Get that guy. Yeah.
and on and on. And so, but the bottom line is, fast forward again, Vaughan, 2017. The Yorkie Porkies there. The whole thing once again. Here I am in cuffs. Oh, here we go, the whole 9 yards. This time, the first round was 13 appearances up in Bradford court. This time was 9 appearances in Newmarket. And I got busted on 3 major trafficking charges this time.
Carl, I got charged with trafficking for 4 grams in the mail and did 6 months house arrest.
Okay. So
I understand, and I didn't have a lawyer either, right? So 100%, I gotcha. Like everything, okay. I'm just like nodding my head, going, "Yep, been there, yep."
Okay, so here's the key. When I was doing these 9, I'm going to try to sum this up real quick, so I don't know how much time we got left. But okay, so here I am talking to people. I'm no lawyer. I don't want anything to do with a lawyer. Every time I showed up, even if it was to get the next date, I was dressed to the nines. I had a tie on. And I was prepared. I was like total, like I could hear the crickets outside talking. I could hear the mouse over there. I swear to God, I could hear people think, and I was so on alert. And those 9 appearances, I think 8 out of 9 times, the judge puts their hand and says, "Mr. Braun, I would just like to thank you for being so prepared, being so passionate about your words, and so careful about blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, thank you, Your Honor. Hey, but this went on. And when shit started hitting the fan, where the Crown was realizing, well, they know who I am already, and now they're really going to but now it's not Harper, it's Trudeau. And Trudeau avoided me at a town hall. He knew who I was. He was like, I'm like, next question, right? And anyway, I don't want to get into it. But this time I'm sitting there, and in Newmarket courthouse for those 9 appearances, and they were stacking it up. Every time I went, it was like it was getting worse. And the first Crown attorney, who was really going to stick it to me, in turn, I just stood my ground and basically sizzled her so bad that they had to send in the reinforcements. So they sent in the boss for the next couple of rounds, and I was like going like this with them. Okay, like I don't want to hurt you. Anyway, so fast forward, here we are, 9 appearances, and then the last appearance, the judge puts his hand up and he says, "Hang on a minute, Mr. Braun." He looks at the Crown. He says, "It's to my understanding that Mr. Braun wants to open up a charter challenge. So I would advise, when you take him down to the booking office, that you put aside 5 to 6 days, because this may take a while." And he looks at me and he says, "Am I correct in saying so, Mr. Braund. And I looked at him, and I remembered him back in my mind. When you self-defend, the judge isn't your friend, but he's the best, closest thing to a friend. Not only, but a best friend. And you have to put a lot of trust in that relationship because they're there for a reason. They're not just anybody. They're the frickin' judge. Judges are not, they know what they're doing. They've been there.
They have to be impartial. It's not like they're taking your side.
Right. And in no way, they'll defend you because in no way do they want these other people pulling wool away. Not in their court. So keeping that in mind, this man told me my option. Hey, that's exactly what I am in the process of doing, Your Honor. Yes, thank you for reminding me. So I jump up, open the door. The Crown's like, you're supposed to hate me. Why do you open and holding the door for me? So we go down to the office, have a little chit-chat with them. We come back, and we go back into the courtroom after booking for 6 months down the road, 5-6 days for the court next appearance. And he gets a phone call. The Crown gets a phone call, and he goes, oh, Your Honor. He goes, oh, take it out in the hall. We'll be here. He goes out in the hall. I'm sitting there, and of all times, I have an anxiety attack. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I took a deep breath, like one of those sort of shuddered, and I was thinking, oh my God, I have to go to trial. Right? I'm going, oh no, right? I did it. What did I do? And I couldn't breathe. And I started bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, I grab a Kleenex, turn around, the clerk and the judge are behind me. And I think I saw the clerk going, I think he's crying. So I'm like trying to dab my eyes. I can't breathe. I'm talking to myself, trying to calm myself down. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. The Crown comes back in the room, and all I hear is like the adults in the Charlie Brown show. Wah, 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 wah. And I'm like trying to get my next breath. Minute goes by. I turn around. I had my eyes dry, and I look up. I can't see anything, and you've got goo in your eyes. You've been crying. And I look up at the judge, and all I see is this. And is he smiling? And I dab my eyes, and I go, what did I miss? What happened? And he goes, you're free to go. Excuse me? Well, what about the trial? He goes, oh, there will be no trial. Yeah. He goes, do me a favor, just please keep the peace. I said, come on, Your Honor, So after all is said and done, he gets up, he goes. I get up to go, and what does the Crown do? He jumps up, grabs his bag, runs to the door, and holds it open for me. Wow. And now, I don't know nothing from nothing, because this ain't my profession, but I know a lot about behind the scenes with this kind of stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, this was a coup d'etat here. Something happened. I don't know what coup d'etat means. It sounded nice to say. Now I had my pre-rolled in my dress jacket, my tie, and my glasses on, and I go walking out, and I knew there were 6 cops over there at the exit, and I put that tube in my mouth pretty well right out in the hallway there, and I walked there, and I made sure that the cops were looking, and I waited, and okay, and I walked out, I lighted up, and I calmed myself the fuck down. Now,
we only got minutes left to the show, Hans. Yeah. But yeah, that's like I mean, just kind of like what an incredible story, right? An incredible ending to like charges being dismissed.
Well, now. My phone call that evening, real quick, I phoned up a lawyer, a prominent lawyer in this business, who I had a conversation with the weekend before, and this lawyer kept saying to me, you got to give the Crown something. You got to, whatever you do not. Now, I'm going to emphasize this hugely. This lawyer was telling me, do not go to trial. Whatever you do not go to trial. Give the Crown something. And I go, no, the Crown is not getting anything from me. As a matter of fact, the Queen's taken everything from me so far, and I said this in court, that I want it back with interest. So I told this lawyer, no, dude, you got to change your tune, because what you're saying is not right. The week goes by. 2 days later, that was a Sunday before my last appearance. 2 days go by on CP24. This guy is being interviewed on CP24. And at the very last 30 seconds, he said what I asked him to say. I was like, hey. Friday comes. I go to my last appearance, which turned out to be my last appearance. And I phoned a lawyer and I leave him a message. He calls me back that night. Carl, how did it go? Oh, name to be withheld. I said, it went well, apparently. And he goes, what happened? And I said, this is what happened. He goes, Carl, if what you're saying is true, 50 people have tried and didn't even come close to doing what you just did single-handedly. That was unprecedented, what you just did. And I was going, what? And then he asked me for my trial number, and I gave him my other trial number from years prior. And just to fill you in on that one, another lawyer told me, the things that they don't tell us. So fill in the blanks. Buddy's been using these numbers ever since. And I got to tell you, I had no idea anything of what I had done until long after the dust settled. And these are two aces in the spade. And I got to say, not once, but twice, did I go and sock Goliath in the nutsack real good. But it looks like the third time they're going to have to lose them altogether because they're still standing. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day,
we're going to have to, cut this
No.
off for time. But we'll have to come back and do another round because there's so much more to this story.
Oh my God, is there ever? But that's it. It's all a lie. I have to say, the Cannabis Act and the ACMPR right now, 100%. It's a facade that I can't believe everybody is still dancing to the damn DJ's music. Pull the plug on it already. It literally, and if we need to do it in Canada, it's going to set this record straight for this plant globally real quick. But it has to start here in Canada, and it's already done. The only thing that's happening right now is these jackasses are holding up this bullshit lie every day. It shouldn't exist. They need to be taken to court. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to bring it to the attention of Canadians that whoever's behind the ACMPR and the Cannabis Act and Health Canada. Health Canada's a joke. They're a poll-stroking political corporate cesspool of racketeering. And that's what it is. And here we are buying time. They're buying time. That's all it is. Right? That's all it is. This is sickening. It's a fatal joke. So it's done already. I knew this in 2012. I just didn't realize. I was trying to tell the people in the coalition, but you want to listen to my story.
I'm sorry, dear. We got to cut this off. So thank you again, and thanks to our sponsors. And we'll be back next week.
Awesome.
We'll have Carl back. Talk to you later.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.